What makes you feel most vulnerable?
What makes me feel most vulnerable is when I have high expectations on myself as well as high expectations from others as a mother, a wife, a leader, a doctor, and don't always have the answers. And so when I say things like, I don't know the answer to that, or I'm going to find out, that's a moment of vulnerability. I think a lot of times with those big responsibilities, there's an added pressure from the outside world as well as me to have it all together and to know it all, and I don't. So I'm actively working on embracing the power of I don't know and being okay with that.
Hell yeah.
You should record that part and keep that part.
Yeah, just that.
You'll hear control freak Melinda like planning the intro. I'm like, I swear we never plan our intros, but
yeah.
We have our lovely friend and incredible hand on all of everything TBM, James, here with us. Hi,
so
James.
Exciting to have James here.
But in addition to like, obviously your down to earth production company, the work you do together, how you help us behind the camera, you always hear James from behind the camera, like talking to us, making the funniest comments, but you are so much else as well. Yeah. So like, can you tell everyone like your makeup artistry, your background?
Yeah. So I am a makeup artist. That's basically what I do. Obviously,
an educator,
celebrity, red carpet, editorial, commercial, really anything. And then I also am in education, in corporate education. So I work for a luxury beauty brand doing education and teaching makeup, teaching beauty. And it kind of marries my two passions. You know, I was an educator for a really long time, a teacher, and loved beauty and fell into makeup and then kind of did them both simultaneously, and now I do them both together as one thing, which is kind of like the perfect storm of like what I wanted and what I love. Merge. So that's what I do.
And the name Down to Earth Productions really came from the inspiration of James being so
monotone?
Down to earth. No, such a humble, kind, amazing human being. But really, he's just such a good soul.
Yeah.
That his just presence is so warm and people just love.
Yeah, talking about energy.
Yeah, you are exactly what you described earlier in our outro.
Yeah.
You are that. When you described how people should be, that's actually who you are.
Yeah,
and so I just love having you. And
I know. Thank you so much for
you're amazing
for everything you do for the Beauty Manifest. It really is amazing. And so we just had to invite James on for the intro and outro this episode. So you'll hear more from James at the end after we finish up with Christine. But Natasha, we have Christine, your lovely guest,
who's an incredible licensed therapist. She's a speaker. We actually met while she was speaking at an event. And as soon as I met her and I heard her, I was like, wow, I love her. I just want her energy. And the first person I thought of was Melinda. And I was like, these two need to connect.
I mean, mental health, beauty, Latina. We both lost our moms to cancer. We both cried in this episode.
Yes. There's a lot.
There's a lot. So thank you for seeing that. And thank you for connecting us, because that is what you do. You connect.
I love that. Thank you.
But I really think everyone's going to be obsessed with this one.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Especially because the James appearance.
Of course. This is going to be a special.
No, it was a very good episode. Y'all are going to really like it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
I hope you enjoy.
We'll come back and we'll see you at the end.
And we're back from our break. That's my one line in the show. I'm new to America.
Christine, this is shot 2.
Once we get sponsors, we'll have you record.
Right.
And we're back from our break.
You have not heard my, what's it called? Infomercial voice.
Oh,
I'll put it on later.
No, do it. Tell me I have to buy an apple.
If you like this apple, Dr. Christine Coleman is going to give it to you in a way that you can't even imagine.
Oh my God, it's like a movie trailer voice.
Yeah, but it's more cheesy than that.
You got to warm up.
You got to take the apple. No, it takes time. It takes time. I had to train myself because it's so hard sell and it's so opposite to me.
Yeah.
So when I had to do these voiceover, it's like, Instacare, in 1 second, you can do Yeah. it's
Wait,
like-
you've done this?
yes, I've done infomercial voiceovers.
Wow.
I hate to write scripts
Did you
for
know that about
infomercials.
I knew that you wrote scripts. I didn't know that you were doing the voiceover.
Oh, dude, I did everything. That's how I became a makeup artist because I was doing bruises for
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
right? So then also the voiceovers I was doing.
Oh my gosh. how
Wow.
funny.
So I had to train my voice, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm like, what is as seen on TV? I was in Hong Kong, so we were doing, as seen on TV products.
Yeah.
So when we were building these products, we couldn't find a voice in Hong Kong that could replicate that. So I was like, I can do a really strong American accent, and I could try. So
Yeah,
then
of
I
course.
would practice, and then I did it.
How funny.
She does it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little comedic relief for our camera reload.
My one
good.
input in this whole
No.
show is gonna be.
Here for it.
And we welcome Dr. Christine Coleman. In case you need to check
Oh,
yourself.
I didn't put on gloss. Am I okay?
I'm
Yeah.
right in front of this large mirror. So
Yeah, it
I
looks
got
good.
the best
You can
spot.
stare at yourself.
But
Every
if
now and
you're
then I'm
more
like-
comfy with gloss, because I know you midway you might be.
Oh, I'm okay.
Yeah, it looks good. It actually looks really like, when you naturally have plumpy lips, that's what it looks like
Natural
right now. Like,
plumpy lips. I'm here for that.
yeah.
I know I haven't touched my lips with anything in so many years, and I actually had my filler dissolved, and I thought that they would be smaller, but
No, it looks so good.
occasionally I'm just like, oh, I really want filler. And I'm
What
like,
was the
nope, I
experience
don't need it.
like? I've never had it.
Getting the filler or
don't
having it
need it.
dissolved?
Getting it. Oh, I guess both.
Well, having the filler was fun, honestly, and like I did it when it was like super trendy years ago, and I remember the first time I got it done, I was in San Francisco, and all of the estheticians and doctors and med spas and everything there were at least a lot more conservative than, as you would imagine, an LA based injector. And so I did it like once or twice in San Francisco, and I was like, oh my God, this is hundreds of dollars. Like, I did not have the money to spend on it. And like, I was like, I'm barely seeing any change. And so when I moved here, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it one more shot. I went in and I was like, can you just like do me up? Because I've done this like twice. I haven't seen much of a change. Filler builds on itself as well. So oftentimes you do need a few times for it to really make an impact. But oh my gosh, it was like, whew, like full
Oh,
on.
I
seen her?
Nick, you need to
you
put a
seen-
picture up. Come on, you must have one photo.
Full on. I might back one. I definitely have some like photos in my grid where you're just like, oh wow, your lips were.
Yeah.
And it was fun for a second. Like it was fun, but then I kind of like let it go. And then I've been working with this really amazing dermatologist, Dr. Beisman. Shout out Dr. Beisman. He's amazing. And what I love about him is that he's really, he's quite conservative, but he has a conversation about what you want when you ask for it. And every time I've asked for something, we do that. And then I usually end up being like, you know what? I don't really need this, which is so the opposite of most experiences in LA or whatever. And I respect both, but I appreciate that he kind of like talks me out of it. So I decided not to do any more filler, but I had like a little bit left at the bottom, and it was making my like lip a little droopy. So we just dissolved it.
Wow.
And now it's just,
This is such an interesting topic actually to start with because this is so taboo with our Indian culture. Like I was pointed out as the girl who got filler done and I would hide it. So this is my first time actually talking about it. My first time was in Mauritius. Mauritius. I was randomly there.
I don't even know where Mauritius is.
I don't even know where Mauritius is, but it was one of my friend's weddings, and it was, I think I was like 24, and I was with my bestie Preeti from Hong Kong. We grew up together. We were in London together, and I'm like, I want to get my lips done. All these people are doing it. I want to do it.
Well,
I
you
want to
see
do
it
it.
so much on social media. You're like, oh, that's what a normal face looks like. No, it's not a normal face.
Right.
So we found a random doctor. Drove
Oh my
like,
goodness.
can you
Never
imagine?
goes
Like that's how determined I was. I was like, no, I want to get my lips done today, and I want to do it now, and I don't care how much it's gonna cost. We found some random doctor like in the woods, this weird holistic
In the woods?
Like
Okay.
it's Mauritius. It's like an island, right? You don't really.
Okay. No, I told you
It's
I don't know where
We
Mauritius
still
is.
don't know where that is.
Let's Google it. Where the fuck is Mauritius?
Oh my gosh.
I wish Akash was here. He would be like, babe, you travel to all these places. You don't even know where it is on the map.
This is what we mean when we really don't prep for these things. We just roll whatever.
Oh, it's in East
conversation.
Africa. Yes, I should have known that. Mauritius
An
is-
island?
Yeah, it takes
cool
a day
name.
to get there. It's an Indian Ocean island nation, is known for its beaches, lagoons, and reefs. So just think of like rainforests, hiking trails, wildlife, all that. and I wanted to go get my lips done in some random place.
It's like, Natasha, read the room.
Nope, didn't read the city, didn't read the country.
Oh
didn't-
my
yeah.
gosh.
So I went and I did it. And I was like, oh, wow, my lips are swollen. I don't know how it was. And then, yeah, same thing. It didn't really, I didn't see it. After a while. I was like, what's going on? Because I really had very, very thin lips. And I was always insecure about it.
You would never have known.
No. And I've been doing it since, but I haven't done it in a while.
Beautiful.
But
Thank you.
your lips are gorgeous.
you're-
Oh.
I would have guessed that you have had filler
Yeah.
just
Thank you.
because they're so like beautifully plump and in the right places too, like in the center where it gives you that little pout.
Your Filtrum girl is filtraming.
Yeah, gosh, you would think having a guest on this podcast, you would think that you were like a professional in the beauty space
Yes.
coming on with this glam.
It's really funny because I was a young makeup artist, and so
Oh,
did I tell
okay.
you that?
No, I,
I
don't
was
think
like,
so. Or maybe you did.
there has
to
My
be a
memory's
connection
so bad,
here.
So it's
I
perfect.
was an early 20s makeup artist hustling in school for psychology, needed to make money, and this was before the days of YouTube and influencer
cool.
stardom. And I never really, I tried so many times, you guys, to like set up my little corner and record. It was just too much for me.
Yeah,
But I
fair
I
enough.
just found my way, and I didn't go to beauty school or anything of that. And actually, when my mom was a therapist, and I wanted to go to beauty school, and she was like, cool, but you have to get a college degree. That was her expectation for me as
Okay.
a Latina mama. She was like, you have to go. She was the first one to go and got her master's, actually. So I said, okay, I'll study psychology, which, funny enough, I was like, I will do anything but be a therapist because I was just rebellious. And then
Common theme of our podcast,
I mean,
apparently.
okay. So anyway, I still wanted to be in the beauty industry, but then I got into psychology, and so much of my journey has been around the intersection of beauty, body image, and mental health. And then just loving the craft, and also loving how it makes us feel. And I think you're right, it is a taboo topic where we're at now. And I know y'all are the ones that have really been in the game, but it's interesting to see where we've evolved, and also with social media and all the influences that we have. And so it's okay, thank you. And all the influences that we have, and like how do we navigate doing what makes us feel good, while also like not giving in to pressures to change ourselves for societal expectations.
Wow, so our lip filler conversation was not so random.
Nope.
It's actually quite
Super
applicable
segue.
to your career and where you've been and where you start.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Now you can tell us a little bit more about
Yeah,
yourself and
so
do your
yes.
little intro.
Okay.
Please.
Well, my name is Dr. Christine Coleman. I've been in the mental health field for over 16 years, but I've really enjoyed other parts of empowerment and supporting women. I have a nonprofit called Soul Sisters, Inc. And actually, the nonprofit was birthed out of many things, including the way that I saw beauty and makeup in particular transform women and their self-esteem. And when we were starting to put together the wellness framework around how we can support women, especially without access to several resources, how do we empower women? And we came up with opportunities to be able to empower women through makeovers, through professional development wear, and then also mental health and physical health and creative arts and professional development in other ways too. So there are many aspects to the things that I'm passionate about. And I just feel so thankful to be with you all, because I was sharing, I've said this to a few people, how excited I was to be on with you today, because it's not only a gift to be in conversation with you both,
very
it's
kind.
also very full circle for me, because my mom just passed away in April.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
Thank you. And I'm already going to start crying, and we just started.
It's okay.
And it just feels, even when I was at your podcast launch, like what a gift, because I'm in the mental health space. I have worked as a therapist. I'm in nonprofit. We work with a lot of people who have high needs and different varieties of needs. And I also am a diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitator and trainer. And
Amazing.
I
didn't know that part.
have found the intersection of all of them, and the beauty part is something that feels so starting point for me. So just intricate, and like we can find ways to create, and what you're doing is exactly that, to normalize mental health conversations, to make them approachable, to help people feel less make it feel less stigmatized. And in our world of psychology, we call it pathologize, like make people feel like they have a label on them and something's wrong with them.
Right.
When we normalize our conversations and we make it fun and we can see ways that can empower us, it's such a gift. And so to be here with you just feels like, wow, I get a chance to look back at all of the many years I've been in these different fields and see them merging together, and also feels like a little wink from my mama, wink from God.
You're gonna make
of just
me
like,
cry.
I got you, I got you.
Yeah, 100%. I love that moment.
And I will just say she's so powerful. I met her as her mom was going through a lot, and she was on stage and she was speaking and she was being empowering, and she was going through so much inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had just found out that my mom was transitioning to hospice, like right as I was going to speak at that event.
Oh my
And she was like, go. And I was so excited because I was like, this is like one of my dearest friends, Destiny. She invited me to come speak as a mental health expert in the context of the beauty summit. And I thought that's so cool because, again, that was that kind of introductory point of like, do I really get to bring this back to me and the whole parts of me? And so I really wanted to go. I knew there were going to be really cool people there, and I was just like so excited. And then I get this news. It's already been a journey. If anybody has been, we're in the midst of caretaking or just having a loved one with mental illness, or terminal illness like cancer. It's a journey. It's not like any part is just like things are good. It's just this constant emotional roller coaster. And but until the word hospice or the end comes up, you kind of just always hold on to hope.
Yeah.
And so, but it was beautiful
So
that my mom was like, she knew how important it was. She's like, go. And I'm so happy I did because I got to meet you.
Exactly. And look at you.
Gosh, so I lost my mom to cancer when I was 17.
Oh, Melinda.
And she was in the hospital for about a year and a half or so before we went into hospice. But just hearing the connection you had with your mom and the way she, your support system, and she were like encouraging you to pursue, like go to this panel and do this. And I had the same experience. Like my mom wanted me to be in the hospital with her, but I wanted to be in the hospital with her to the point where I was like, let me move back to San Diego. Like, I don't need to be in LA right now. She's like, absolutely not. Like, you're pursuing your career. You're on the right path. Like, so I can like so many parallels
That's
between
why I
like
really
the
wanted
beauty,
you
the
guys
mental
to
health. Like, wow.
Absolutely. I'm really sorry. That's
Me too.
hard period. And you were
Thank
really
you.
young to be going through that. That's really
But
young.
there's never a good time. There's never a
It's
good time.
true.
But I do remember. How long was your mom sick before you moved into hospice?
Just about 3. Her journey was about 2.5, 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
So when, much of
yes.
my mother is Mexican American. And even though she grew up predominantly here in the US, so much of what I noticed, I'll say, about her journey was she knew there was something wrong with her body. And there are a lot of conversations that we have, especially among women of color, especially from immigrant backgrounds, of the ways that our bodies are treated and the ways that healthcare has failed women and women of color in particular. And my mom had a lot of discomfort and was really good at advocating for herself. Knew that there was like abnormal things happening, especially at her age. She had uterine cancer, and they recommended that she have a hysterectomy. And she was like, my grandmother had a forced hysterectomy as a Mexican woman.
Wow.
Like, I'm not doing that.
Wow. Talk
And
about
then-
generational trauma.
Generational trauma, and and you don't realize it until you're in these moments where it's just like, can I trust these doctors? Yes or no? And my mom, as a mental health professional, worked at Kaiser. Some people might know Kaiser, the HMO. So she's been in the healthcare setting and system for a while, and generally, I think I thought she had more of a trust than maybe she did. So when it came to that moment, I was like, really, Mom? Like, why don't you just do what they recommend? And she was like, no. And anyway, months passed by, still a lot of discomfort, a lot of abnormal things happening. So she finally said, okay, I'll have the hysterectomy. And she started noticing some of these things in January. And then probably, I think it was October of the same year, she finally said, okay, I'll do it. And they they gave her a hysterectomy and discovered that the cancer was not only there, but it had spread. So it was already at stage 4. So that's tough.
Yeah, so
right?
tough.
When you listen to your body, you listen to the history, you're cognizant, and also what risks does that put us as us in as women who have a lot of mistrust, understandably, right? That's not something that we can fully trust. And who knows if she had said, okay, that had been different. I don't know about you, Melinda. I try not to get caught up in the what ifs too much, because that's really tough. But occasionally I'm just in my anger or frustration, like, why did she wait? But also, like, I understand that she waited, and why does our healthcare system have to be so
there's so many layers to it. Yeah, even just like the resources and money that this country in particular has. And I'm just like, how have we not found better solutions for people going through this when there's so many people experiencing it? Right. And it's so difficult to navigate. The healthcare system is close to impossible to navigate. And I don't think I've ever felt, now I'm going to cry. I don't think I've ever felt,
Take your time.
I don't think I've ever felt more alone than being sick and trying to navigate the healthcare system. Like, especially when it comes to mental health, like cancer. Oh my God! Like you're talking about losing your life, but also with mental health, it's like people who are struggling with their mental health need help. I think the most to seek help, and it is so difficult. And I am so privileged. I have support. I have resources. I am so privileged. So for me to have had such struggles navigating the healthcare system and it having failed me in such a big way, long story short, I was prescribed antidepressants and they were given to me, they were switched and given to me too quickly. And it shot my nervous system. I developed chronic nausea for 3 years. So like I was at rock bottom, finally got myself to seek help, and it just knocked me down even further. Like, and this is the thing that we see in the system. Absolutely. And what, and again, like I have so much privilege. I can't even imagine people who don't have what I have going through that. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh.
Absolutely. It's really something how, as a therapist, I try my best to do what I can. I have my own private practice, but I worked in community health prior, especially when I was gaining my hours and just getting started. And one of the reasons I also started Soul Sisters was because I was working at an all-girls high school for low-income that serve low-income families and students. And that's really where I started noticing that the stigmas that communities and culture have prevent people from going to talk to some stranger about their mental health. And so to hear you, Melinda, appreciate and acknowledge your privilege and also recognize how hard it was for you. We're talking about layers and layers and layers of challenge to access mental health. And endless. Absolutely. And now that I fast forward to have my own practice and I charge a decent amount of money, I know that it's not cheap, but I'm also on the end of like, I need to be able to charge to make my livelihood. How do we find that balance? So Soul Sisters is my way of saying, I want to still contribute to making mental health accessible and different interventions that we're building. But
good for you.
But this is real, and I'm appreciative of you sharing your reality. And I'm really sorry, because there are a lot of individuals and mental health professionals that do a disservice to the clients that they serve, but we're also held to really high standards. I'm constantly going through different classes to keep my education sharp. Like there are requirements, right? And yet I've heard so many stories of the ways that people have been misheld or wrongly prescribed or things of that nature. And this is like, we talk about physical illness, which again, in a lot of communities of color also, we tend to be more open to like a doctor, even with the histories of generational trauma of the mistreatment in healthcare. There is so much to be said about how, especially in the Latinx community that I come from, partially my father's Iranian, but growing up in that culture, I learned like it's very taboo. It's very, you don't do that. But a doctor telling you what to do with your body, physical, the physiological aspect of things, okay, give me my medicine, tell me. And so we're trying to break through a lot of these barriers. And then imagine when you finally do say, okay, I'm going to let down all these guards
Yeah.
and go talk to somebody. And
Oh yeah.
right, they misdiagnose you, they pathologize you, as I said that word earlier. They shame you for, why don't you just get your life together? When we know there are so many social implications to that
Yeah.
too, with poverty and with
Yes, absolutely.
different challenges, with historic, right, generational mental health challenges. It's a lot.
Yeah, even when I went to 2 different specialists to get upwards of like 15 lab tests done to figure out what was going on with my gut, because I mean, for the majority of the time I was on the antidepressants, we didn't think that they were causing it in the way that they were causing it. We thought that like, okay, this pill is giving you nausea, let's try another one. But in fact, switching from one to the other was making the situation worse. And so I went to a specialist and we're trying to figure out, you know, and then those doctors aren't talking because they're not connected. Your psychiatrist and your like a gut and stomach specialist. But anyways, the gut and stomach specialist, after all of these tests, she just came in the room and she was just like, you just need to lower your stress levels.
Oh, gosh.
That was her response, her diagnosis,
I remember. Oh my
her
God.
only feedback. And like, can you imagine how defeating? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, that's what I'm trying to do. Like, that's why I finally, like, I grew up with, my dad's Cuban. So we also have that background. And I do a lot of DE and I work in the Latinx space for Sephora. We have an internal community group called Mi Gente. And I've interviewed my dad and his immigration story for that. And it's just such a cool way to be able to participate and learn more about that community.
Absolutely.
But my dad, growing up, very holistic. Like, he's probably been to a Western style doctor. He's in the last year, he's had heart problems, a pretty serious one. So he's been to a Western doctor quite a bit. But prior to that, less than he could count on his hands, like his entire life.
Wow, yes.
Always would see, you know, like a intuitive acupuncturist or herbalist and things like that.
Yes.
But so I was really hesitant to take an antidepressant because I was told my entire life that the pharmaceutical company is out to get us, which, you know, there's some truth to everything in life, but it was a little, you know, it's like not good. And so it took a lot of me to decide, oh, I'm going to ask for help in this way when I was uncomfortable with it. And then I just, man, it really proved me right with my discomfort in that example.
Absolutely.
But also our medical field and what we have in the United States is extraordinary, like the way we can save lives. So I don't, you know, and really at the end of the day, each of these people, each of these practitioners, we're all just human and we're given the resources that we're given. And so, you know, even like the doctor I was working with, I have no bad feelings towards her. She is, it's complex AF.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what we're all getting at, right? Is generally we know that there are wonderful, talented people in the healthcare field
Absolutely.
and medical field who are trained and
so
do really
such a
well.
selfless career
It's
choice
such
too,
a
in a lot of ways.
And even just being in the infusion center with my mom when she was getting her chemo, I would take her most times and just sitting there for hours and watching these nurses and doctors and assistants just hustle and grind and showing it for people all
Hard
day. And some
work.
people
It's a lot
are super kind and some people are just clearly, you know, just going through it and take it out on others and just, wow, the selflessness. It's a lot. And so I saw such gifts of human beings in that journey with my mom. And me being in the mental health field, that I hold myself to a really high standard about how I treat people, and no provider is perfect. And there are understandably high standards that we have to fulfill because we have people's lives in our hands. It's important.
Absolutely.
It's essential. So, but what I'm hearing you say and what I can relate to so much, and I want to make sure you can chime in too, is like the layers.
What I wanted. No, remember what I said?
Well, you
when we
told
entered,
me, but
was
I
like,
didn't
no.
realize like how many levels
there's,
we have.
Trust me, as soon as you guys
no,
entered,
she knew.
I have been waiting for this to happen for so long, and I actually knew that I'd just be sitting here because like
I love you
there's
for it.
too many things.
That's so
I didn't
beautiful.
even tell you. Remember, I was like, I'm not going to tell her anything about you because I wanted this to happen.
It's great. It just it keeps it
I
so
know.
organic.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
does. It does. But you're right. I love the
Yes.
word, the layers.
Yeah.
Right? The layers and the complexities that happen. And we again, I'm calling myself out. We have to continuously, as the professionals in this space, be cognizant of all of the layers that a one person or one family comes with, right?
Yeah.
What you shared about your dad, wow, how that must have influenced. And clearly it did, because it showed up in moments of maybe second guessing or wondering, maybe some anxieties around, am I doing the right thing?
Oh,
In
absolutely.
the midst of trying to, like, right,
Help
you said,
myself.
I'm trying to reduce my stress by coming
Yeah.
to receive these interventions and this support. And gosh, that's just, there are many layers to this between,
Defeat.
right, defeat. Tell me more about defeat.
Oh, I mean, it's, I think when the healthcare system, and I've been seeing it with my dad recently too, because with his heart problems, he'll go to one doctor and he'll have like this list of questions, and he'll research one topic for like 24 hours. Like he'll spend hours upon hours upon hours making sure that he's educated and he understands, and he takes a very holistic approach. And our systems aren't always very friendly to a holistic approach. I mean, for example, even when I went in, I was never asked about my diet or my exercise. Like my therapist, my talk therapist, and I would talk about that. But like my psychiatrist, I don't recall her asking me about that. Maybe she asked if I exercise. I think in the questionnaire it asked if I exercise, and I was like, 1 to 2 times a week, which isn't really exercise.
Yeah.
And I was telling her just this morning before you got here, I've been listening to, I love the Huberman podcast.
Okay.
And he's, I think, a neuroscientist, if I'm not mistaken. He brings a lot of really intelligent doctors on, and he had this woman talking about how the numbers and the results of people lifting weights are actually stronger than the numbers and results for people taking antidepressants as it relates to mental health and depression. And I was telling her this morning, I was like, I need to start lifting weights immediately.
Yeah.
I go on my like long walks, and this
I do
doctor,
too.
she was specific to women's health as well, which I love, because when do we get that? Never.
Yeah.
It was so informative. She was like, intermittent fasting isn't good for women. Like all of these things.
And it's true. Like I intermittent fast, and I know it works for me for my like how I work, but I know it's not good for you to do it for too long.
Hormonally, I heard.
Hormonally,
yeah,
it's not good. If you do
your
it for too long,
menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
menstrual cycle gets fucked.
Well,
Like,
they say within the first 30 minutes of being awake, you want to have at least, I think, I forget the amount, but protein within 30 minutes, whether it's like a protein powder or something, because
Why not? Yeah.
within 30 minutes of being awake, especially as a woman, your cortisol spikes at 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you can get ahead of that
wow.
with protein, then you're more balanced.
Yeah.
But
It's true.
the defeat is the lack of a holistic approach, not only holistically as it relates to healthcare, mind, body, but also spirit, as a human, like the holistic approach as a human.
yeah.
I think that gets lost all the time. And I also, you can't blame the system, because a lot of these doctors, they're sued for doing certain things that are out of the norm or out of what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
And so they have to protect themselves, but I'm just layers.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to fix it. I just know that I want to have more conversation about
Yeah.
it.
And I appreciate you sharing as an everyday person who is very aware, you're very cognizant of your health and your needs. And also we think about, well, how do we become aware? It's because sometimes we're not given the resources or the care that we actually need. So we have to do our own researching, our own digging, our own advocacy.
So much.
That's what I always recommend to folks. When I saw it with my mom, she was a really great, she self-advocated really
Sounds
well.
like it. Sounds
But also
powerful.
I wanted to step up when, especially in her weak moments, I was like, okay, I gotta be there for her. I have other family members I've grown up with in this big old Mexican household, and lots of tios, lots of grandmas, and just only child, and just really saw ways that, if they were served with maybe my family, some of my family members were and are low income, and I would take them to certain appointments that were different from Kaiser, maybe more like community health centers. And similarly, my Theo, my uncle who passed away last year, is like a father to me. He had a dual diagnosis of dementia Parkinson's. But before that, for a long time, people were telling him, just do more puzzles. Just stimulate your brain more.
It's always just.
What?
Just lower
If
your
you
stress.
just did this,
Just
then
do
everything would be
that.
fixed. I'm like, you think that that's going to fix this rapid, or, we didn't know if it was rapid at the time, but, it ended up becoming really rapid. And so we hustled, I grinded to transfer him to another healthcare system that would give him more access. So yeah, when you talked about what happens when we are in our privilege and still running up against all these challenges, and what happens to people who don't speak English in this country,
Oh my
who don't
gosh.
have access to all the money to cover their medical bills, to all these different, right?
That's what
The
I
layers
can't wrap
upon
my
layers.
head
It happens all the time. And so I am, we have to do our due diligence to have these conversations and normalize them like you're doing, and also be able to find ways where we can relieve the taboo around them as well, especially mental health.
Yeah.
Right, especially mental health. And I'm actually really curious if y'all would share with me what you notice or what you're aware of in the beauty industry and some of the mental health challenges that folks in the industry display or even express themselves.
This is like my biggest passion. You're
Yeah,
asking
exactly.
me
She's
right
like-
now.
I think
Like,
you
how
should
much
go.
time
I know
do
you
you
are an
have?
should go.
advocate.
I think you should start. I will say though, I came from a community that is, it's super taboo. Talking about mental health, having a therapist.
Yeah.
Growing up in Asia, you don't talk about these things, and now it's getting better. So this is something completely new for me, and so having this podcast is so impactful and powerful because I'm doing taboo things
Yes.
by speaking out about it as an Indian woman and talking about it. So I do want you guys to talk about it a lot because I'm learning as well. So I'm that audience.
I love you for that. Thank
Yeah.
you. And also, that's a great segue to something I wanted to say earlier. I didn't get a chance to, but I'm going to answer your question. I just wanted to shout you out because coming from a Mexican cultural background, and I know from my dad being Hispanic and Cuban, to go into the field that you've chosen so like unapologetically, and also be able to be that for your family when that I'm assuming hasn't been really in that line before is so
Besides my mom. Yeah, my mom was the
powerful.
pioneer in that. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. And it's really neat because even the mental health industry or field, I should say, has changed.
Yeah.
And especially with the influence of all the social media and things, because as mental health professionals, there are a lot of rules and regulations and ethical codes that we have to
Yes.
abide
Yeah, I
by.
can only
And so
imagine.
in the field, there have been a lot of back and forth trainings and brainstorming around how do mental health professionals show up professionally on social media,
yeah, of
and how do
course.
you navigate being personable, which we know social media is all
Yeah.
about, like bringing in your vulnerability. And I by nature am an open book, but I also am a practicing licensed therapist, and I have to be really cognizant of
Sure.
what I share. And so my mom growing up, she'd be like, we can't go to these places because my patients are going to be there and I can't be found out and I can't interact with them. And it's like, now we're navigating a whole other kind of
Another
blurred
layer.
line of like, do my clients follow me? I don't follow my clients. I don't like, I can't do stuff like that. I can't control what they do,
That's true.
but confidentiality is the biggest thing in our field.
Yeah.
And so we have to be really mindful. So even thank you for saying that. And even just watching my mom as a psychotherapist growing up and seeing how hard and rigid she was also in a different, not only time, but also in a different setting. She was in a healthcare clinic
Yeah.
where I work for myself, and I'm also building out my own brand, if you will.
Right.
And there are a lot of mental health professionals that are doing really cool things, like making funny reels and just making, again, mental health more approachable. And so, but yeah, between, again, the layers, right? The
There's
layers
so
of
many layers.
identity and the layers of the rules and regulations to even be doing this work, it's a lot. So
Yeah. Lot
yeah,
to navigate.
I appreciate that. That's really
Yeah, oh
sweet.
my gosh. And as it relates to the beauty industry, I mean, I started to see it because I used to work behind the camera for Sephora. I built out our Instagram video program and managed our YouTube channel. A lot of transferable skills to a podcast.
I see
and
it.
Here we
I
are.
see.
I know. I started to like do video edits for our podcast, and I was like, "Oh, this feels very familiar."
Yeah. It's like natural to her.
But we had some of the most beautiful, wise, talented, smart people come on camera, and my job was really to try and like pull out their authenticity on camera so they were more relatable for engagement, for the content. But as I started to like look through our comments and look at how our viewers were engaging with the content, I noticed that the more vulnerable and the more authentic someone could be on camera, the less online bullying, the less negative comments. Not completely, obviously. We still live in this world, but made a big difference. And I started to see the power of the beauty industry in the digital space, because so much of what created the selfie was the beauty industry boom. And so much of what created the influencer was the beauty industry boom. And I know I'm a bit in my own bubble, and so there's other contributing factors, but it was a huge part of it.
Definitely.
And I started
Beauty
to
had a big-
feel that weight on my shoulders. You know, I shouldn't put it on myself, obviously, but I started to feel it. And I was like, we have so much power and impact as Sephora, the biggest beauty retail, like, period. And our reach on social is insane. And so that's kind of what caused me to step in front of the camera and want to be able to connect with people, because I've just always really organically been an open book. And I TMI, like, I always tell people too much. I'll be talking to, like, you know, the coffee barista and telling them, like, my mental health struggle. I go deep right away. That's just who I am. And so I wanted to connect and make a bigger difference in that way. And it's been so healing for myself to do as well. But I think one of the biggest issues is the selfie, just on social media, and how we're comparing ourselves. We got so hyper fixated on all of the little details, and then it turned into filters, and now it's turned into AI. And we've created a very unrealistic beauty standard. It's something that is so out of reach for these kids who are coming up, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I'm just so worried about them, because, you know, us growing up, we saw unrealistic beauty standards for sure. It was always fed to us, but it wasn't in a magazine or a movie or a billboard. Now it's in the palm of our hand, and we're consuming it. I think the average is something, I'm going to butcher it, I can't remember but it's something like 15 hours a day or something like that these kids are on social media.
My goodness.
It's like insane.
It's a lot.
AI it's undetectable, undetectable editing. Like, you don't even know what's real or what's not anymore. So I think it's the selfie, it's that aspect of it and comparison.
Yeah.
But then it's just like the baseline, use of your device. And I think in the beauty space, it's become almost like, if you're a beauty lover, you're almost like inevitably a content creator.
Yeah.
Like, it almost goes hand in hand, and not for everyone, but like, you want to create a look and share it. And it's just more time you're spending on your device. And so there's a baseline of just device use as well, and what the screens do to our eyes and our brains and all of that. And then I think the last pillar, like, I'll say for the beauty industry, I think is, we saw a lot of negativity, I think, or I started in fashion. I went to a fashion institute, and we saw so much, like, othering, and so much like classist almost behavior in the fashion industry, like people really being unaccepting of others and casting people out, and not a diversified, you know, space for a long time. And I think the beauty industry kind of like punched through that, but you still catch it every so often where if you don't have like the latest procedure, like you don't have lip filler, even like you were talking, or you don't have the latest foundation, and this happens in every industry, but it casts people out. It makes people feel less than. So again, I guess it kind of goes back to the comparison factor.
Yeah.
But that's something that like I've been really proud of, having the power in a way to just like cut that bullshit, because like if I'm at like a Sephora event and I see or hear something like that going on, I'm just like, no, like I'll stop that conversation.
Really?
Yeah. And like fortunately people respect me because I have the beauty director title. And so I don't know why no, I'm just kidding. But like I'm using it to my advantage for that aspect of it. I'm like, I don't want the beauty industry to repeat what the fashion industry had to learn. And there's been parts of that, but yeah. So
That's
again,
a really good line, by the way, that you don't want the beauty industry to repeat what
I agree.
that is wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what drove me out of fashion and into beauty in the first place. And then I started to see it trickle back up with the social media and influencer boom when I was starting. You know, it was peaking with like the Jaclyn Hill and Becca Cosmetics collaborations. And I was like, uh-oh, is it happening here again? Like, so.
Wow. It's really neat to hear because I wouldn't consider myself a makeup artist today, but back when I was young and
You are.
actually,
Looking at your makeup, I'm
You
like,
are a makeup
I don't
artist.
do it on anybody
If
else
you
but
do your
myself. I'll say.
makeup, you're a makeup artist. You're an artist.
I like that. Thank you. But you know, just serving in that way, I'll
Yeah.
say, it's really, I find it so fascinating what you're sharing because I enjoy that industry, the beauty industry so much. And I also consider myself, so I'm a consumer, but I'm also someone I have my ear to the ground on what are the implications of when this goes from it's something that makes us feel good and it's artistic and it's an outlet to now it's starting to really mess with my perception of myself, with my self-esteem. We're seeing a lot of different bills being passed with kids and social media. And a lot of that is pertaining to, what's real? How is this affecting actually how I feel? And so we're focusing a lot on young people, understandably so. But do you all feel like it's also still impacting us as adult women or adult people of different genders?
I also have a lot to say about this topic,
Please.
not just in the beauty space, but in the entrepreneur space too. There's besides comparison, I think there's always a need for validation from just people on Instagram. Like, how many likes did I get? Oh, this person.
And the chemicals that releases in your brain that they have done
That's
a lot
why
of
it's
research
so
behind.
addictive.
It is so addictive. And as an entrepreneur, you're focusing on so many different aspects of your business that we don't have time to focus on those things. You know, the negative things on Instagram sometimes, like, oh shit, now I have to post this thing on Instagram. I have to build my business. I have to do this. And then when you don't receive the validation from your fans and followers, it breaks you.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of people I speak to on a regular basis that do resonate with that.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
not
for sure.
necessarily just in the beauty industry.
That's such
but
an overarching for all industries.
Yeah.
That's just a social media problem. You're right.
Yeah, it's just social media in general. Like, and I was also someone who would constantly look and compare all the time, be like, oh my God, this person's doing better than me. Oh my God, this person's at this event. Oh my God. And then I started to realize that everyone is going through their own shit.
Oh my gosh.
And you cannot, and that's why I started actually doing more offline events, if you've noticed. I do so many things that are not just social media based. I'll post stuff on social media, but I like to connect with people deeper in real life for that reason, to have that offline connection where you're like, oh wait, we understand each other and it's not just about what's going on social media, and we don't have to compare each other.
You have a really big social media presence. Your follower count's really high. How do you navigate even just that alone?
It's not even, first of all, compared to the world, it's really not that high. Like everyone has, that's another thing. When people say that to me, they're like, oh my God, you're big on social. I'm like, there are people with billions of followers, millions of followers. And I'm like, oh, how do I get to that point?
That's so
We
interesting.
all
So it's
think like
never
that.
enough?
The goalpost always
Never
moves,
enough.
right?
When I hit
Wow.
10,000 followers, I'm like, never enough. When I hit 60,000, I remember I was in the hospital. I had COVID. I was in Hong Kong. I hit 60K. I'm like, yeah, I hit 60K. And that was what made me so happy. And I'm like, this is so
I know.
Isn't it?
stupid.
It's interesting when
Because
we sit and talk about
it's so
what
stupid.
are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? What are we valuing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are we actually doing in our day-to-day life? Like, how are we actually living? Like,
Exactly.
Right. Going
because
to,
it's
like,
so
you
easy to get
doing
so
more present
consumed in what you're posting or what
Yeah.
you're sharing. It's like, none of that matter. Like, did you actually enjoy your day and your experience?
to talk to real people in your
Exactly.
actual
In your everyday
sphere.
life.
Like,
Yeah.
it's very hard for me to post in general when I'm out and about or I'm with people because my biggest goal is to remain so present. And so like pulling myself in and out of that presence and that connection with someone like doesn't feel good. And I'm just like, yeah, so many layers. But I think one thing that is really beautiful about the beauty industry as it relates to mental health, like, I mean, I found breath work through my skincare routine. You know, you're supposed to wait a certain amount of time between your serums and your moisturizers. And so I started to do breathing in between each step. And I was like, ooh, this feels really good. Wow. And so I started to experience presence. And then I kind of moved into like training myself on meditation from that. I think one of the biggest things for me that's a red flag with the beauty industry as it relates to mental health is anytime that you feel like you are using beauty to camouflage, cover up, to make yourself feel something because you feel less than otherwise, that's when I'm like, oh, I need to take a step back and actually challenge myself not to wear makeup.
That's a really good point.
Because for years, makeup was my camouflage. And it is so empowering for women, I think, to like put on their coat of armor, you know? And it's like, it makes me feel powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm all about that. But I think it's where it comes from.
Yes.
And like how beauty manifests
Oh,
from
for sure.
inside externally. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I was, again, that young, starting makeup artist, also studying psychology, and even in high school, I was actually, as we're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, in high school, I was really passionate about doing like different research papers on body image. And this is again before social media. I was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I was in high school, but I still was really fascinated by the topic and to see how it's evolved over time and how it's been a core part of me and things I'm really passionate about is so cool. But the makeup artistry that I started really loving and then integrating again, even as a young person, that passion and that interest, I actually started this blog. This was like in the time when blogs were really much
Love
bigger, called, super long name, the Multi-Ethnic Women's Project.
Oh my gosh.
And I took a few of my friends,
I
like
love
of different
that.
diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds, and I did their makeup and we did these like little photo shoots, like amateur photo shoots.
Cool.
And I did a blog write up on what I suggested for their skin tone to their facial features to really enhance what they
Hell
already
yeah.
had.
You were so ahead of
I mean, this was before this was a big blown up thing. I know everyone cared in different ways, maybe, but just not so publicly. But that was something I published and someone caught a hold of it in the Bay Area where I'm from. And I was invited to this event where I got to display the blog and
How
the picture.
cool.
It was
That's
just
really
really
cool.
cool to talk about what I did. And again, I was a young therapist at the time, and I was so excited to meet another therapist. His name's Tomas Alvarez. Shout out Tomas. And he was also a therapist, and he founded a nonprofit called Beats, Rhymes, and Life.
Okay.
And the point of me sharing that is because Beats, Rhymes, and Life was the first entry point, and actually Tomas was the first entry point to learn about how you can combine mental health with other sorts of interests and interventions to still promote healing and wellness, but in ways that are approachable. So for him, he was reaching out to, high risk, there are different words for this, right? High risk or at risk youth in Oakland, and giving them opportunities to write rhymes, to produce beats, to be paired with a therapist, to be able to express themselves and their traumas through music. And I thought
That is a holistic
cool.
approach.
that's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
And that's how Soul Sisters was birthed, between my experience as a new therapist at a high school, to my mom, to the beauty stuff, to a whole other topic of being in abusive relationships. I wanted to find ways to empower women on a holistic level. So when we created our wellness model of mental health, physical health, as you talked about, right? Huge for our wellness,
you.
creative expression, which could be art to singing to what music, also beauty, and then professional development. That's what we saw as a holistic approach to helping women actually make steps to transform their lives in the way that they desire. So there are millions of maybe not millions, but there are several wellness models out there, and they're all fantastic. But that's really what we landed on strategically about how to empower women and see them press on forward. So it's just really neat to see how conversations like this, how they can go left. Maybe not how initiatives like beauty can go left and can go wrong, but also how we can take grasp. And like you said, I'm not for that. I'm going to interrupt this. I loved that because it doesn't have to be this way. This is actually a really positive outlet, a positive.
I mean, I've talked to people who have expressed to me that doing their makeup saved their life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like this shit
I believe
goes
it.
deep.
I believe it.
I believe it. I resonate
know?
with that too.
Yes.
You feel good about yourself.
Well, and when you're struggling so much and you find something that you love and you're passionate about, it could be anything. But it's like everything in this world, it's a balance.
Yeah.
And we can't polarize it too much where it's like, oh, it's this or that. It's everything in between.
That's right.
And everyone's different in their approach with it. But that's why that's how one red flag that comes up for me, that I'm like, okay, use beauty however you want to bring joy, to bring calm, to bring whatever you need into your life. But just recognize when you're using it because you feel less than, or because you're trying to hide, or because, recognize where it's coming from, and then challenge yourself to shift that, because otherwise it can become, you can lose your passion for it. And then that's sad.
Yeah.
And I've been there
Yeah, absolutely.
with makeup.
And I know that both of you know that these trends are ever evolving.
Yeah.
And we do things to ourselves. We do things to our mental health. We also do things literally to our bodies to change, to stay on top of trends. And the amount of things that people of different genders do to themselves to stay on a trend or to be noticed or whatnot. That's why I think that I personally just get saddened and a little frustrated with the industry, is that it's cool to develop different trends. What I don't think is cool is that we feel such a pressure to keep up with them, and we spend so much money and we do all these different things that could be quite painful or damaging to us, and we don't even know, because there's such a pressure on us to be relevant and to be seen and accepted.
Yeah.
I think a lot about, I'm curious what you think about even the concept of contour. I think contour is really beautiful, but what are your reasonings for contouring?
Yeah, that's that's a really good question, actually.
It's always like, where is the beauty that you are creating externally sourcing from internally?
Yeah.
It's like you're saying, like, contour can be awesome. Like, if you want to switch something up, maybe you don't like your nose.
Yeah.
And you love contour because you can, like, shift it. That can be okay. But this is where it's such a spectrum. It's like, where is it coming from? What is your relationship to self? Like, can you love your nose without the contour still? Because that's amazing. And then play around and do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think one thing I heard or read somewhere that really stuck with me is, and when I say body type, I'm going to use it in terms of, like, also like face type, like your structure, like body holistically. A body type cannot be a trend. Like this whole, you were talking about, you were studying body image and eating disorders around the time. And when you were saying that, I was like, 90s, early 2000s, that was the worst, because it was like Paris Hilton was the ideal, the trendy body type. And I remember I always just felt fat.
Yeah.
Because compared to her, I have a Cuban ass. Like, there was no way I'm going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, I think, with everything that's happening that we're doing to our faces with filler or with surgeries or whatever it might be, or maybe even just contour. It's like everyone looking the same way physically cannot be a trend. Like, that's just unhealthy baseline, right? Like, I can't really think of one circumstance where that's like...
Yeah, but I also see so many people who have been victim to it, right? And, like, what do you do in that situation? Even if it's something so simple like a filter. I'm not even talking BBL. I'm talking filters, right, on your face.
Yeah, like
as a
the
makeup
super
artist,
slopey nose or
everything,
whatever.
yeah. So as a makeup artist, I'm like, okay, I'm going to contour you so that you're confident enough, but you have to be comfortable with yourself. I never want to change you into a different person. But when they start slapping on the filters, I'm like, what? That's not you. Like, why do you want to mask yourself so much?
And it's not their fault, because this is like... I've done it.
Yeah, we've all done it.
I
That's what
filtered
I mean.
and edited the shit out of my content in the past, and had to make as I started to heal, had to make a very conscious decision to do otherwise, because when you're so immersed in it, like we all are, spending hours upon hours consuming this, you get brainwashed.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, how are you not self-critical? How are you not going to want to use those things?
You know, I will say also, being a beauty brand, every time I want to post something that's really authentic, let's say the model has wrinkles or and we don't want to edit because we don't want to do that.
Again, yes.
People will be like, oh, but
The
you know,
makeup
it's
must
not
not be as
edited
good.
or it's
Yeah.
not. So you have
your
the
makeup must not
contrasting
work.
sides. Yeah, exactly. And then in the beauty industry, because you're a luxury brand, everything has to be so perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
what we're
I'm
used
kind
to.
of in between, where I'm like, I want to be super authentic, but obviously you have to retouch photos.
Yeah.
So where do you go?
You know what's a good example of that I experienced personally? So being a beauty director, I do a ton of self-application on camera for Sephora's social media platforms, and highlighter has just been such a massive category for years now. And the amount of times I've applied highlighter on camera, I couldn't even count. And years ago, I wanted to get filler under my eye because I noticed when you add highlight to the top of your cheekbone, that's where you have your natural wrinkle lines from smiling, from being happy. The highlighter can intensify the appearance of texture. And so I was like, oh, I just want my highlighter to look perfect and go on smoothly on camera so it'll look better. And I'm like, but this is not a fair or honest representation of the product I'm selling.
Yeah.
Because there's no caveat message below that says when used with filler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is what led me to be like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't want to create like unrealistic standards. It's a lot easier for me to do because it's not my brand. But when you're selling the product and people are accustomed to seeing that and that's what they're looking for, they're going to look at the highlighter photo and they're going to be like, oh, that doesn't look like what I see on social media. So it must not be a good product.
Wow.
So I feel for you.
Yeah, it's difficult. That's what I mean.
Yes.
It's like, but I will say someone that has really, really pushed me towards being more authentic has been Melinda. Because again, this is something I don't
appreciate
speak
you.
about, or I was really nervous about being so outspoken about mental health and about just being real, like being myself and showing my acne marks and showing my skin. Like that was something I was so insecure about because I was like, I'm a beauty brand founder. How can I have bad skin?
I so feel you.
know?
Yeah.
And that was something I think I became really comfortable with it. I don't use filters anymore at all. But I show my skin. I'm like, look, this is what it is. Obviously, we have to edit photos for like retouch photos for like big campaigns and stuff. But then still, I'm like, let's try not to because I really don't want to do it. So I'm getting there.
And
I appreciate that it's a journey.
It's a journey. I'm not gonna lie. It's not that easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah. And you are so kind to always say that I'm the one you were already there. I just gave you permission.
To be vulnerable.
You already wanted to do it. You already had it in your head. You were already authentically that person. You just needed someone to be like,
it's
fuck
okay.
yeah, do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I
that's
needed
cool.
like a
And then
cheerleader.
also being like, by the way, according to Sephora's like social analytics, like it performs better.
Exactly.
So there's
But
a lot
also,
of layers.
it's scary because in my culture, I'm already labeled as a rebel. I'm already like the most naughty, rebellious Indian girl there is. And even just a few days ago, I was told by my mom, she's just like, oh, there's more rumors about you. I'm like, oh my God, really? Even when I'm so honest. But then she's also like, you know, there are a lot of people who are coming up to me and they're like people who you would never imagine to say, I'm so proud of your daughter for being so outspoken and speaking about what she believes in. Because it's like,
hell yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. Be authentic, be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
It's a good message.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm learning so much about you, and also you're right. It's not easy. And I was just going to briefly mention about in my private practice, I serve predominantly people of color in leadership roles. So I work a lot with executives, a lot with people in different directorial roles, because the struggle is different. There's also a huge intersection between, again, our cultural and racial identity, ethnic identity, and also moving up in the ranks, if you will, and like the different pressures that come with that, the different privileges that come with that, but also like the tie to the different oppressive systems that we're navigating, and just like, how do I speak my voice and be taken seriously without being risked of getting fired or labeled as all the different things that especially women are labeled as, like, you know. And so a lot of times, you know, to your story, it's really hard to be the one that changes the trajectory of things in our culture, in our industries, and it just the way that the ways that our family and structures have done things. There's a really great business coach I like to follow named Ed Milet. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him. And he has a book called, I think it's called The Power of One. And he talks about being the one to, you know, like we said, you know, the one to change the trajectory of your family's wealth, to access to, you're not the traditional Indian girl. And like, it's so powerful and it can be so empowering, and it's also hella hard. It's isolating. It's scary.
That was
when
what I
you're
was
just
recognizing about you. Like, I know your mom worked in the space, but just like culturally too, like it's just, you're doing huge things.
Thank you.
Making massive shifts.
It's really tough.
It's not easy. And I just wanted to acknowledge both of you, but especially with you sharing that, you're holding the weight of the world,
It's a
the weight of the world on you, and still doing it with such grace and kindness and compassion. And I think that what I saw just even in this short interaction was like, you have the power because you've made maybe more choices over and over again, because it's not like a one-time stamp and I'm going, which sometimes we wrestle with ourselves.
Yeah.
But we make those decisions with ourselves, and we're not responsible for doing this all by ourselves. And so even if you had, like you said, that decision in your mind to go forward and change the game in so many ways, to have friendships, to have community, to speak into you, to give you that nudge, to like, we need that. And I think so much of this is like,
Definitely.
grind, do it alone. No one else is going to do it but you. And you're the only one. Like, I get it to an extent, but that really just puts all the more unnecessary pressure on us, I believe.
Definitely.
When it's like, when we're in community, someone just speaks life into you. I feel like that about even our instant connection of just like, she sees something in me that I have in my heart, but sometimes it feels a little too unreachable, or like, who do I think I am to like, go into these conversations?
Imposter
syndrome is ooh, it's so real.
Yeah.
But even the concept, there's a really great article from the Harvard Business Review, was written some time ago, on how, again, I always talk about systems, but even something like imposter syndrome is put on us as if we're the imposters and we're the ones to blame for feeling this way.
Yeah.
When really, there are institutions and systems that have been designed for us to never even take them up in the first place.
Yeah.
So we put all this blame on ourselves and each other versus like, well, when you look at women in the workplace, that's a fairly new concept in this country, or in many countries. So yeah, imposter syndrome is real in the way that we feel. And I think it's important for us to reframe that. I work a lot in my practice with clients around that. It's just like, how do we take ownership of what we have control over, of what, redefining what's real, and like our own challenges. And also, why is it so hard at work? Why is it so hard? And because at the end of the day, even with a lot of different diversity initiatives I myself partake in and train in, there's still a long way to go. There's such a long way to go.
I really want to give a shout out to my Sindhi community, which is like a type of Indian, right? It's a small community it's a big community. We're all around the world, but there's a lot of girls who are watching this podcast, and I know it because they send me DMs. And every time, thank you guys, because a lot of you always come to me and say, oh my God, I cannot believe you're saying the things that you're saying, because like talking about your divorce, talking about it so like amicably.
You're brave.
It's really taking
brave.
a lot of balls. I will tell all of you guys this. It's taking a lot of fucking balls to speak like this, to even swear. But one thing I recognize is growing up, all of us would be like, oh, I can't tell anyone about this, or I can't tell anyone about this. And we never felt like we had that girl tribe support. And I know it sounds like I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, but it's a really big number. It's a big percentage of us that feel that way. And I know that because I was always like, oh my gosh, I can't post about this because what will people say? It's like a constant line that we have. And like I would show up in a random country and people would know a lot of stuff about me within that community who I don't know.
Right.
So I would feel scared to voice my opinion because traveling makeup artists working in different countries, if I was talking to a guy, I was sleeping with him. And so, like little things like that. So then I was like, I can't even be myself. I can't even be vulnerable. So I had to like almost put on this face of who I was on Instagram. And only recently have I really been like, I'm just going to be me and you're going to deal with it. I got my divorce. I dated a guy. I broke up with, we all broke, whatever. Everything is so public.
And you are changing people's lives.
Yeah. And it's
by sharing
okay
that.
to be real. And that's what our podcast is about, being fucking vulnerable and being who you truly are and being comfortable with that.
It always pays off.
It really does pay off. Yeah.
In the sessions I do with some of my clients, we talk about the liberated self, because so many of my clients with different racial and ethnic backgrounds wrestle with like their American identity that tends to be a bit more of a liberated self, maybe less cultural traditions and rituals, but there are still so many parts of their traditional cultural upbringing that they value, and they wrestle between those of just like, how do I be my authentic self that feels more free and unafraid to be myself, but also still hold on to what I really do value in my traditional upbringing and the culture that I uphold. And we wrestle with that. We wrestle with that. But when we think about, okay, my liberated self will allow me to, blank. My traditional self, I still want to blank. And we just really work through that and hold that we hold multiple identities within ourselves, and they intersect. So we're not just a woman. We're not just a person of color. We're not just this professional in this industry. All these parts really do intersect, and it is what makes us beautifully unique, I believe. But they can be hard when they feel disconnected. That's why when we talk, I think a theme I've heard today is also like full circle moments. I know I've shared mine, and I'm coming into a place in my life, and I'm hearing it in both of you. It's just like, I've tested out all these different parts of me in the ways I've maneuvered my career and my life and my relationships. And I don't know if we ever, like you said, it's never really a goalpost or a finish line. But I think I'm entering, I'll speak for myself, this point in my life where I'm just like, really see everything starting to like make sense and come together. And what can I do to just continue to decide to live a life that I want, which is a gift.
Yeah. I love that.
You are extraordinary. Thank you so much for coming on.
I love being right.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I know we're like going to wrap up, but I heard Natasha ask, and I'm curious too, just before we do wrap up quickly, are there any tips that you might have for people out there who are, and I know, again, it's so circumstantial and everyone is different, but maybe some baseline ideas or resources or practices that you could recommend for people who might be struggling with their mental health as it relates to beauty and their perception of beauty?
That's a good question. I'm actually so thankful that you asked that, because that is something I'm really passionate
I can
about.
tell.
I really love it.
I'm over the moon by you and this conversation.
I love it so much. Gosh, we mentioned the word journey. And so sometimes I think it's really difficult for us to make a hard and fast decision about, I'm going to get my fillers removed. I'm going to make a stance and decide this. And I think those decisions are important. But again, we are faced with, like we said, there is a machine in all of this that is grinding. And we have to be really, really kind to ourselves in making decisions to love ourselves. And then the next day you look at yourself in the mirror, just like, well, look at this, and really, I think accepting that process, but always coming back to center of, I talk a lot about conscious thoughts, subconscious and unconscious. So many times, I think I use the word liberation in a lot of different ways, but I think we feel so liberated when we just have it in our consciousness. So maybe we can't make a concrete decision every single time. I hope that we can, but sometimes we can't, but at least it's top of mind. So when you're wrestling with, I need to look this certain way, I need to meet this beauty standard, I feel great today because I feel so comforted, and today I feel really shitty. I don't know, what's going on with whatever I don't like about my appearance.
We all have
them.
We all have them. We're normalizing the conversations. Just have it top of mind, and then reframe that. Get back to kindness. Mel Robbins, I think, is the author. She has the high five rule. I think it's really cool. But is that what it's called? The high five rule. A lot of positive affirmations can help rewire the brain. And again, sometimes that can be permanent and sometimes it can shift back and forth. But I like her stance on going. I like mirror work a lot. I saw you do mirror work at your trade show.
She loves doing that.
And it's so important.
It's helped me.
I used to do that when I was a therapist to young girls at the high school.
Oh, wow.
Doing a lot of self-esteem and body image work in the mirror. It's
so cool.
Not just a cool thing. It's actually proven
Oh,
to
good.
be
Well,
a
that's
good
why my
strategy. So
product has a mirror.
Yeah. Oh,
so you
really?
can look in the mirror. It's self-reflection. You look in the mirror and you're like,
Absolutely.
ambition, game changer, hustler, drive, like whatever.
See,
Yeah.
you're on it. You're on it. I love it so much. And just real quickly, Mel Robbins talks about putting your hand to the mirror as you speak your affirmations, because that's just a quick moment where your brain says, I'm connecting with self. And I like that a lot. And we can do that,
Easy.
privately or quickly.
Yeah.
And really just, again, accepting that this is a societal pressure that we carry, but how do we empower ourselves? So showing up authentically. What I do love about social media is we're seeing a lot more body diversity, facial
Yes.
feature diversity,
Yeah.
unfiltered content.
There's
so while
only
there
so
is
many pages in a
Yes.
magazine.
Yeah.
right, I think we're seeing a big push in that.
Yeah.
So if something that makes you feel connected to yourself and makes you just say, I'm going to make conscious effort, even if it's hard for me to put out a post that, like a selfie that is super out of my comfort zone, I'm going to put it out there, even if it's just a picture yourself where you just hold it or you just do some work with
Right.
yourself before
Yeah.
you put it out to the world. We don't have to put everything out into the
Absolutely
world.
not. Yeah.
We don't, we look for validation. I get it. We need
Yeah.
that. But we really need to love ourselves and also have a trusted circle
Yeah.
and be able to have those confirmations that we're enough and we're good. And really having those opportunities to tell your girls, tell your friends, tell your loved ones, like, I see you and I think you're dope. I really
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
you. I don't think we have that.
Yeah.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough. And actually, that's something I want to make a point with just everyone. Just do it to strangers. I want people to know that they're fucking awesome all the
Yeah.
time. And it actually used to come across as fake. A lot of people would be like, oh, she's so fake. She compliments everyone. Because that's just who I am.
That's who you are.
And like, why does she need to do it? Is she doing it because she's a people pleaser? And I realized that over time, I also had to realize it was genuinely from my heart because I want them to know how freaking awesome
And
they
again,
are.
it's also what you needed as a kid and what you were never given.
That's true. Yes.
And it's healing you to be able to give that to other people. I think.
Yeah, no,
Not
that's
to put
true.
words into your
no,
mouth.
that's so
but
true because you're right. She knows my whole story, my journey with my friendships and this and that. And all the time, this is something I'm like, I wish people would just trust each other more, or I wish they would build a connection or a space where they felt more confident and comfortable to be themselves in real life. Yeah. Not just, not just watching a podcast, but in real life. Try and make those connections because that's also gonna help you with your mental health, right?
you guys, this was
amazing.
everything.
We
This
need you
was-
back for part 2.
Yes.
She took a flight over just for
Had
this.
to.
Thank you.
Had to.
Honestly, so honored.
We really
Thank
are
you.
so
Truly.
honored to have you.
This was beautiful.
And where can people find you? Do you want people to find you? Is that something you want to share?
Please. On Instagram, I'm at Dr. Christine Coleman. And our nonprofit Soul Sisters is at Soul, S-O-L, like the sun in Espanol, SOL Sisters.org. And then also same on LinkedIn and my website. If anybody is in need of reaching out to me, asking any questions, you can do that on DM on Instagram. And also my website is drchristinecoleman.com.
Amazing.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I say amazing a lot. I found out yesterday someone was like, "Oh, is it amazing?" And then I realized I'm like, "Fuck!" I probably said it a lot in my talk, but in this talk that I was invited on
Yeah.
at his thing, and it was pretty cool. But to recognize it and be like, "Yeah, I am amazing."
I love it.
What's wrong with the word amazing?
I don't
think
know.
anything
It's
wrong
just
with that.
positive.
Yeah.
Also, this James is
Speaking,
here.
talking about amazing. Truly.
I mean, so honored.
James.
Oh my God, triggering. Not the religious
Trauma. I
trauma.
know. I did it on
Right off the bat, I gotta go.
I just snorted into the microphone. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you all have definitely heard us
Oh my God.
shout out James, and also you've heard James just talking shit to us from behind the camera in the best possible way so often, and we've been trying to get him to just like poke in here. So we thought, let's film our intro and outro with James.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited that you're here.
It's amazing.
I cannot believe you actually agreed to do this. We
Well,
were
it's-
doing our intro, outro, and he was like, "Yeah, okay," and he just sat. And
Just because I was already here and I
Yes.
didn't want to get up.
People
I'm
need
so
to be
proud of
graced
you.
with your beauty, honestly.
No.
Yes, that's how I feel.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, so Natasha, you killed it with this episode, inviting this guest.
Oh, thank you. I thought you said speaking in this episode because I didn't really speak much because there was so much to hear and it was beautiful because I knew the relationship between Melinda and our guest. Can we mention her?
Yeah.
Christine was going to be
'cause
phenomenal.
This is our outro.
Yes.
So they've
Oh
already
yes, so
watched
you already
it.
know. So it was amazing. But no, I just knew that their relationship was going to be so strong.
Yeah.
And as soon as they would meet, they would have a lot of things to talk about. And so I just kind of sat in the corner and listened to a lot. But also as a consumer and also as someone who has suffered from the world of everything being taboo, being an Indian girl, not not being comfortable talking about mental health publicly and just my journey as well. It was so nice to listen to these two empowering women who are who are confidently talking about mental health.
They're like, wait, what's going on?
Let me get my wig.
Yeah, so that was a great episode.
Such a good episode. James, thanks for coming on and sitting with us.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I enjoy sitting and listening always. And mental health, it's an important conversation to have, and you have direct, experience with it in the beauty space. So it's good to see your
But I've
perspective.
appreciated talking. I like getting to know you and talking about these subjects too. Like to know that you're a part of this and you're behind it. Like it's just that emotional support and knowing that like you get it, and it means a lot.
I mean, we all go through it. Why not talk about it?
Yes.
Especially in the beauty space too. It's very real and it's at the forefront of everything.
What are some of your challenges that you faced
In regards to mental health?
in the beauty space specifically?
I think in general, like the idea of image, I did YouTube for a really long time and I had to stop doing YouTube because especially after moving to LA, I found myself staring at myself for too long. I was editing constantly and I began to pick apart everything.
Yeah.
And so when I first moved to LA, I got convinced by my friend to get filler. I got 11 syringes in my face.
11?
11.
Wow.
11 syringes.
A
I look
filler?
like a filler.
Where?
Yes. Here,
Oh,
here, here, everywhere you could.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I looked like handsome Squidward. You know that meme? Like just terrifying. So terrifying. And like I looked crazy.
This is the first time Ryan James laughed.
I know, this is amazing.
And I was like, oh my God. I would look at myself in the mirror and be like, who the fuck is this person?
yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then even then, I was still editing myself. I was still looking
Yeah.
at everything and being like, I need to change this. I need to change this.
It just goes
I
to
need a
show
nose
it's
job.
never
Like,
enough until it's enough inside.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had to stop doing YouTube because it was like so detrimental to be looking at myself for that long. I became very body dysmorphic.
Yeah. Gosh, I
Especially
so
like in the
resonate.
community that I'm in and everything. And so I think that doesn't really get talked about a
Yeah,
lot.
not at all.
Like you have these young people on social media all the time filming themselves, looking at themselves. And then especially in the beauty space, like, make your cheekbones look a bit better, make your eyes look better. That's a part of the
Yeah.
beauty space.
Yeah.
And that's fair,
Like,
right?
why does
all
this
of those
makeup not look
things.
the same that it looks on them?
Yeah.
Well, because they have so much filler that their skin has no pores.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
I think it's an important conversation to have. And now, even in the space that I'm in, doing what I do now, trying to help people, they come in and it's fine. It's a funny juxtaposition because they'll come in with all this face work done, and they'll be like, "Oh, I want something to look really natural."
Yeah.
I'm like, you want to look natural?
Yeah.
I think you missed that bus stop like 5 bus stops ago.
Way past.
Where we've gone
man.
past that. But I think that's what we've created just in this space. And I think the younger generation sees it a little better, which is
Yeah,
good. There's a
I
lot
think so
more of
too.
that like
Yeah.
authenticity and realness and rawness. But I think for our generation and maybe a little bit younger,
Yeah.
it's a struggle.
Well, we were the first to kind of be
Definitely.
subjected to it in such a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I
was
think
like
the
a
younger
shock.
generation is watching us and being like, the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
We're like, we don't know. We haven't done this
Yeah.
before. We have no example.
Yeah.
So true. I can't tell you how much I resonate with that. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
I have a scary story. Not scary. So I went through all of that, obviously, and I got a lot of stuff done to my face. And I briefly touch upon this in the episode, but it was such a taboo thing in our culture to even talk about it, to the point where I would post videos and people would be like, "Oh my God, she got lips, she got her nose, she got everything done." And I didn't do all those things, but they would constantly, they're like, "She got her nose done and she did this and she did this." I got so much filler at one point that I did look like a different person. And I went to Dubai and I had this doctor do a thread lift. And I'm like, okay, I'll have cheekbones. I'll do it, to lift your cheek. I didn't even want to do it. And they forced me to do it. this doctor, that it was a completely different world where they were like, oh no, you need to do it. Your skin will look better. And that is my biggest trigger.
Yeah.
So he was like, your acne marks will go if you
That's
just
like
lift it.
unethical
Oh my God, I
practice.
cannot tell you what happened to my face. I'll even just probably send Nick a picture of me to show you how I looked. I looked like a completely different person.
Wow.
It was my whole face swell up. I remember waking up and I was living in Dubai. I just moved to Dubai. I was living in a hotel. I woke up and I was like, who are you?
Ugh,
And I
yeah.
cried. I fell on the floor and I couldn't go out for like 3 days because of this stupid thread
Not to mention
lift.
you pay for that.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming, but you know, like
Yes.
people pay for these things, and then it's like,
But at that point, I was like, I wish I didn't do this. Forget the
course,
money.
yeah.
For my whole face is ruined. For 6 months, I looked like a completely different person.
wild.
And I
6
mean,
months.
luckily, it's something that went away. Some people will do things that
Yeah,
are permanent, and then you've
exactly.
like changed your thing. And then it's like the law of diminishing returns. You get something done, and you don't get the same like pleasure the next time, right? So you have to like do more and do more and do
Yeah.
more until we wake up one day. You're like,
Exactly.
what you say? Who am I? This is a different person.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like, again, like what I got to shout out my dermatologist, Dr. Beisman in Nashville, because there's ethics behind this kind of work. And it's a matter of, I think, I'm not a professional in this space, but just from an experience from like a client perspective, like I so appreciate when a doctor asks why you want something.
Yes.
And is willing to take just a couple minutes to have the conversation, because I've gone to him with a couple of things where it would have been fine if I got it.
Yeah.
But he's just like, you know, like your proportions look great. Like why do you want this? And I was like, honestly, it's just what I'm used to seeing. And so I'm thinking that I need, and like, then I'll be like, wait, you're right. I don't want this.
Yeah. Like, what are you chasing? What are you trying to achieve?
And it's never going to be enough out here if it's not enough in here.
It's
Right.
so true.
Period.
I actually really want to give a shout out to Dr. Daniela Newman because
Yeah.
she has refused basically for me to do anything since
Oh,
since I
really?
told her about that journey. She's like, you don't need anything. Just stop it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, a little, yeah, a little. She's like, no, just stop.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want it, yes. But then she's right. I don't actually need it. I don't want it. I just put a little lip liner and I'm good if I really want to plump.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't need it the way that I needed it before.
Yeah.
So big shout out, Danielle. I know you also watch the podcast, so we love you. I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn. Well, we all have had our experiences with it.
Yeah.
What's your advice for people who are thinking about or who are unhappy with themselves and the way they look?
I mean, everybody has autonomy, right? You can do, that's the beauty of life. You get one body, you get one life, do whatever you want with it as long as it's not hurting somebody else. But you need to understand, like you were saying, your why. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
What are you chasing? And know that like it's not going to fix internal body image. It's
Right.
not going to fix yourself. You have to be happy with yourself regardless.
Yeah.
And there's so many other things about humans that are wonderful. You know, I never think, you know, when you meet somebody or when you experience somebody later on, when you're describing the person, you might talk about their looks, but you're normally talking about like how they made you feel.
Yes.
Their emotional capacity.
So
like
true.
when I talk about people, I'm like, oh my God, they're so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're so nice. They're so kind. I'm not
Their
like, oh, their
energy,
cheekbones are so
comfortable.
Yeah, that's so
beautiful.
true.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you will if they're
Yeah.
like stunning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But normally it's like, no, they're just like a great person. They're so down to earth.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so wonderful. So it's like, that's what you have. That's your
Yes.
legacy. Your legacy isn't how many mLs of Restylane kiss you have in your lips.
Yeah.
You know,
That's so
nobody's going
true.
to care at the end of the day. They're going to care about like the words you used when you spoke to them
Yeah.
and how you made them feel.
So true.
And so like focus on that, you know,
Yes.
be a nice person, be a kind person, learn to fix those internal things and love yourself, love others.
And then
like,
do whatever you
at
want.
the end of the day. And then if it makes you happy,
yes.
do
yeah.
it.
True.
Do it.
Yeah.
As long as you are happy in yourself.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes. It's where that's what we were talking about with Christine in this episode. It's like, it's where it stems from.
Right.
It's true.
It's the why.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
intention.
true. Like I will probably get some of this dissolved and then get it refilled if I want to, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I'm in a much more comfortable space with myself where I can be completely makeupless and be like, yeah, whatever, I look great. you
Yes.
know?
Oh my God, you're fucking stunning. I remember, like, I took her to the spa for her birthday this year,
how
and I
hard
was
that
just
is
like
to hear.
staring at her face, and like like you have like baby doll lashes. I'm like,
I love you.
Your
Look at
mascara is
yourself.
fire, but like, you don't like. Why do you even wear mascara? I'm just like,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
But, yeah.
I appreciate it.
And I mean, you've come a long way too, because I think about when I first met you, like things
Yeah.
you would say, I would always be like, the way you talk to yourself is abuse.
It's
Like
horrible.
we can abuse ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
verbally abusing yourself, being
Really
like, oh, this
bad.
is so disgusting. This is so disgusting. You're conditioning your brain to
Yeah.
believe that you're disgusting.
Yes.
I'm not like the type of person that I'm like, when you get up in the morning, you have to go to the mirror and be like, oh my God, I'm the hottest person ever. Like,
I started doing
everybody
that.
loves me. If that's you, go for it.
I
but
have a
like,
mirror on my phone so that I can say nice things now because I don't.
How you speak to yourself is important.
So important.
You know, and when you start from that place of self-love and self-acceptance, then you can move forward with grace and intention in your
Yeah.
life, and you become that for other people.
yeah,
Yes.
You know, and you become an example for other people, and you become like such a shining beacon of like,
Yeah.
you know, self-love.
I mean, beauty is so energetic.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we get so fixated on like the physical manifestation of beauty, but like you're saying, when you're around someone, what makes them beautiful is often their energy. Like if someone
Yeah.
has terrible energy, but they're like hot as fuck, I'm like,
Yeah. It's out.
you're just not as beautiful to
And
me
it's
as
like,
Yeah.
especially here
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, it's like everybody's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like if you're
Exactly.
mean, what do you? You don't have anything to offer me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can be the most beautiful person in the world, and if you have an ugly heart, you're immediately ugly.
Yeah.
So true. Kindness is everything. That's really why I want my brand to speak on those
Yeah.
terms or words, you know, like it is about self-love. It is about self-reflection. And it's because of personally my journey, because I'm not perfect and I've never, ever loved myself.
Yeah.
And I will say, huge shout out to both of you, because both of you have said that to me. You've both pointed it out. You said it's really triggering when you say shit to yourself because you have the tendency in the past to do that. So
Yeah.
ever since you
Which
mentioned
I
that-
shouldn't put on you.
No, it's
but-
great because now I don't say shit to myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Well, because maybe
she's right.
sometimes in order to heal yourself, you have to do it through helping others. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where my head was at. I was like, okay, I'm going to be honest with her. Like it's
love
making me like be like, well, what about me? And so if she hears that, maybe she'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that, my friend. And that's why
Never.
people say like, talk to yourself like you would your
Yes.
friends, because
Yeah.
you would never
Exactly.
say those things to me.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had partners in the past where they have been very self-loathing and said things about themselves and about others, and because they didn't like the way they look. And it's so true. It rubs off because you're like,
Yes.
they don't like this. Well,
Yeah, what
I
about
look
me?
worse than
Yeah, you
that.
start to
Yeah.
question
Should
things.
I not be happy with the way that I
Exactly.
look?
And it's
Should
not fair.
And it's also just energetic too.
Yeah.
Like you just pick up on that, and then
Yeah.
it's like sticks to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I noticed it a lot also within, and it reminded me of the energy that I was around sometimes where there would be someone who was clearly anorexic and she'd be like, oh, I can't eat anything. And I realized I was that person because I never admitted that I was anorexic. But there was a point where I really was. I was bulimic. I was throwing up. I was going out to dinner with my friends and I would just not eat and throw up.
Yeah.
And I realize now looking back that was so unhealthy for my friends
Yeah.
also, which
I
is
know,
not
but-
fair on me.
Yeah, but have a lot of grace with yourself because you're only a human in this society that really perpetuates all of that behavior, you know.
And it's your first time. It's all of our first times
And we've all
experience
done
life.
it.
That's
Yeah.
You know, like we're all doing this, and it's all a trial run, and it's like you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of life, is like not necessarily figuring it out, right? What life is, but figuring yourself out and figuring out like how to find that happiness,
Yeah.
how to find that peace within yourself, how to find that joy, the gratitude, and like the love that you can give to others too.
Can you believe that all of this talent is
Behind
behind
the
the camera?
I
This
was
is
like,
why we've
when
been
the fuck are you coming on now?
so
We'll
incredibly
see. I'll have to send you a
say.
list of like no-fly zones. Like, you
absolutely.
can't talk about
Oh,
this.
100%. We
that's
can put them on a board right in front of us.
I mean,
too.
I was just gonna say, be open, be authentic, but like, yeah, you have to also. This is important.
I'm
You have
just
to keep your
I'm a very
boundaries,
private person,
which is great.
Respect.
and I think
Yeah,
not
it's
everyone's
something we like other people need to learn about.
I think one thing that I've learned, especially being in Los Angeles, is like not everybody has your best interest at heart,
100%.
right? So like the more you share openly to everybody, the
Yeah.
more invitation you give to people to have access to your soul,
your
Yes,
vulnerabilities.
Right?
Yeah.
So
and
true.
you don't necessarily want that.
Yeah,
That's
And
fair.
I think for me, especially, I've even learned within the last year to be super protective of my relationship, to be super protective of myself, of my work, so that, you know, it doesn't give people access who I don't necessarily want access.
Yeah.
Well, it's your
You know?
piece.
Yeah.
Like, this is my
Yeah.
piece. I'm happy with what I've built and what I've created. Like, you seem to be
Yeah.
like very
Yeah.
good right now with like your life, what you've put together. And it's like, you don't want someone to come in and be trying to pop that bubble.
Yeah.
Like, nor do
like
you
my bubble.
need
Right.
anyone. So respect.
Yeah.
And I'm like big on, it is not everyone's responsibility to be publicly vulnerable.
Right.
It is not. Like for me, I've always just been like a TMI person. So it
Yeah.
comes super easy and organic to me, and not even easy, or it just, I can't not. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like blah.
Yeah.
But it's, I never want people to think that like they also need to be that.
Yeah. And
It's
that,
not your responsibility.
absolutely. And it's valuable what you do, and it's valuable to be raw and real. That reminds me of a funny story, actually. Right before I retired from teaching, you know, I taught for 11 years. I spent a lot of time educating people about LGBTQ things, about, you know, being a advocate for my community as a teacher, in, you know, primarily red states and then out in California. And I remember it was a huge situation with a transgender teacher and some parents and all this community. And the headmaster pulled me into the office, and they said, we need you. We want you to help advocate, and we want you to help like create a meeting and do all of these things to help solve this issue. And I remember thinking to myself, like, well, yes, I can do that. But like, I've done that for so long, like educating people about these things and these issues. And like, at what point is it no longer my responsibility
100%.
to help you not be a bigot?
Yeah. You already have to live through that shit. Like you've had the life experience. It is,
Yeah.
Like-
if anything, you shouldn't have to touch on this ever again if
Yeah.
you don't want to.
Right. And it's like, there's one thing, I can be an advocate, and I was an advocate for a really long time. I did the assemblies, and I did everything for the kids, and I showed them a good example of all of these things. But at a certain point, when you're faced with like negativity and horrible people, it's like, it's not my job anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I
Absolutely
don't want to
not.
do it. I'm so tired of it.
And you
Figure
have
it
to
out.
protect your
Go
peace.
Google.
Figure it out.
Go read a book.
Yeah.
There
Like,
are resources
you know,
available.
like,
Yeah.
it's not my job to teach you how to be open anymore.
Yeah.
Like, do it yourself.
Yeah.
And like,
Respect.
there are people that's their life's mission is to like
Sure.
reach out to those and be an advocate. And I support that, and I will give you money, and I will give you support.
Yeah.
You know, I've done it, and I'm
Not your
I
responsibility
want to
though.
be happy now.
Yeah, I
I
love
just want
that.
to live in my peace.
That is so
you know?
fair, and you deserve it.
Yeah, you really do.
But
You're awesome.
And I think we've like probably exhausted talking
Yeah.
so long.
well, we obviously want to have James on. I'm sure
Yes.
everyone's gonna be like more. So maybe
We'll see.
we'll see how you
See,
feel.
Whenever you're
I'll have
ready.
to put on a little mascara, maybe a little lip.
and whatever
Whatever.
topics you want to talk about is what we will stick to.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
certainly not going to be here asking for anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love talking about the beauty space. I love talking about all this. I mean, this part why I'm a part of the podcast.
I love that.
I love listening to everybody and all their perspectives.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all next time. Bye.